The introduction is very, very important. It's basically setting the tone for your whole essay, right? And so I'm going to show you a sample introduction that I wrote for an essay which responded to one of the Rachel Harris prompts. The question is, unexpected events change our lives forever. Describe an unexpected event and the change it brought to your life. Compare and contrast it with the one that Rachel Harris describes in her article, I'm not married, but I'm far from alone. Be sure to give examples from the reading and from your own experience. The core part of the question is compare and contrast your unexpected event with the one that Rachel Harris describes in her article, I'm not married, but I'm far from alone. It's really important to understand that the fact that you are describing an unexpected event is not the point. That is merely a component of the compare and contrast essay that you are writing, in which you find the similarities and differences and ultimate lesson that you learned from this unexpected event and that Rachel Harris learned from her unexpected event. It doesn't need to be the same lesson, but when you're comparing and contrasting, you're finding relationships. Okay, so that's the core part of the question. Remember, this exit exam essay, is not meant to be autobiographical. It has autobiographical components, but this is an academic essay in which you are responding to an essay question that is directly related and based on an article and or essay written by someone else. Anything that you say about yourself and your personal experience should be framed in the context of that reading. And it all starts with the exit exam question title. The title of the reading is usually the moral of the story or the lesson or the theme. It's the main idea. It usually directly refers back to the original author's thesis. Your essay has to have its own thesis. In the introduction of your essay, yes, you will talk about the main idea of that author's essay, okay, which will essentially be your summary. But ultimately, you bring the introduction together by providing a thesis, a main idea statement for the reader that provides a map for the journey you're getting ready to take them on, okay? So, introductory ingredients. A successful essay should use the key words in the essay prompt. You have in front of you on the screen the essay question, right? And so notice that I underlined some words and phrases. I underlined keywords that I think should appear in the first paragraph of an essay. Unexpected events change lives. Help the reader to follow you by using some of the same language in the exam prompt. Now, the other items that I underlined are not words that I'm going to use in my essay, but it's me reminding myself as I write that I'm describing an unexpected event, right? Actually, I'm describing two unexpected events, and I'm comparing and contrasting those two unexpected events. Rachel Harris's unexpected events, which is detailed in her article, and my unexpected event. And I'm drawing connections and parallels between the two throughout, okay? So, your introduction should use the keywords in the essay prompt. Your introduction should introduce the reading and explicitly state the personal experience related to the reading, specifically Harris's article. Ideally, your thesis statement will be a sentence that connects the two. Ideally, though not necessarily. So long as you introduce both elements in the introduction, you are fine. It is merely that connecting these two things in the thesis statement is a way to ground yourself and the reader, and you ensure that it's done. Now, very important, your thesis statement should be explicit. That means clearly and obviously stated, as opposed to something that the reader has to infer for themselves. So when I tell you something explicitly, it's out there, I say it, you can't avoid it, there you go, I've said it, right? You can point to it in my essay, as you can in this essay that you have before you. All right, we know that not all kinds of writing have explicit thesis statements. We know that a lot of writing, successful writing, has a thesis statement that's suggested, meaning it's written, the whole idea is there. We know what the main idea of the essay is. There's no one sentence we can point to in this bit of writing, but we know, hey, it's there. But your essay should not be that, because you're not a professional writer, right? And the reader doesn't have a lot of time. Make it clear and obvious for them. Okay, so we've talked about the elements of the introduction. Let's look at the actual introduction. So I've written, we naturally hunger for consistency, just as we naturally resist change. That is why we are often shaken by unexpected events. In Rachel Harris's essay, I'm Not Married, but I'm Far From Alone, the 55-year-old single mother and divorcee faces an unexpected event that changes her life. A potentially crippling surgery with a long period of recuperation. I too experienced an unexpected event, my grandmother's near fatal stroke. These were very different circumstances, and yet they led Harris and me to the same lesson. There is great pain in the unexpected, but there is also great healing. Okay, so notice that I used key words from the essay question that I bolded for you. Unexpected events, changes lives, and I also underlined sort of keywords, transition words, and I underlined, meaning the word yet, and I underlined my thesis statement. There is great pain in the unexpected, but there is also great healing. As I mentioned, there are a lot of different ways to frame, to create a thesis statement, to write the thesis statement, but for me, I just decided, hey, let me just make it really clear to the reader. Let me just make my main idea sentence something that explicitly mentions me and explicitly mentions Harris. Notice that before I got to that thesis statement, I made it clear that my unexpected event wasn't my near fatal stroke. It was my grandmother's near fatal stroke. It was her incident, and that through her experience, I was impacted and I learned something that changed my life. So note that this is my personal experience, but my personal experience is kind of a result of loving this other person who went through their own health crisis similar to Harris's. Okay? So that is just to show you how you set up an introduction. Notice too that I went from the general to the specific. Right? I talked about people wanting consistency, and I moved on to we want consistency, we want things to stay the same, and that's why we push back when there's change. Okay, that is to set it up to move into unexpected events, right? The general to the specific, getting ever more specific until I get to the thesis statement. So that's how I go from the general to the specific. I told you the name of the reading, I'm Not Married, but I'm Far From Alone. I told you the author's name, Rachel Harris. Okay, and I mentioned my own experience. I mentioned what this essay is going to be about, and in giving you that one sentence summary, which as you see is only one sentence, I also talked about kind of the main topic of her essay. And then I end with my thesis statement, which is explicit. It's clearly and obviously stated. I'm not leaving it up to the reader to infer, to draw meaning from what I've said, though not explicitly stated.